a lack of interest or a lack of knowledge in certain areas. I get my news from you, Asmongold. Yeah, he's memeing. Nick also lies a lot for entertainment. Are you gonna play the new woke Zelda? They made Zelda a girl. What the fuck? It's much shorter than Breath of the Wild. Kanka sen Ankara deyince biri Jacksonville equals Ankara dedi. Ankara'yı kimden öğrendiler? Benden öğrendiler. Turks are upset that people know about Ankara now. Ankara memes. Yeah, apparently, I hope these guys are Lebanese are feeling. Lebanese podcast in English. Explain. I hope these guys are doing all right. Thank you for covering Lebanon Asana, spreading the word. You are one of my idols. I can't believe you found our pod. Yeah, it was because of Caprice on Poppy. I gotta say, I love both of you. My expectations were high and the stream exceeded them. Yeah. Oh my God. But yeah, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah is killed. He has been martyred by the Zionist entity. Okay. Hezbollah came out and confirmed his assassination. Iran has vowed to retaliate. We'll do a little bit of news real quick, and then we'll move on to some more fun shit. And then I'll talk about. Thank you, Adams Push, for the 5 gifted subs, and Twitch for the 5 gifted subs. I hope the chatters that are in Lebanon are okay. I hope they're safe. We are keeping you guys in our minds and our hearts. Martyred, Omega Law. I mean, that is what happened. He got killed.
Overnight, the Israeli military has eliminated its most powerful target yet. Israel says longtime Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah was killed in an airstrike in Beirut. Hezbollah is now confirming that Nasrallah was killed. The Israeli military said Nasrallah was at Hezbollah's underground headquarters, one of several sites targeted in a series of massive explosions that the Lebanese health ministry says killed at least 6 and injured more than 90 others. The killing of Nasrallah not only strikes a blow to terrorist group's leadership, but could also trigger a wider war with Hezbollah's main backer, Iran. Imtiaz Tayeb has the latest from Beirut.
In a massive escalation, Israeli fighter jets dropped a series of bombs on Beirut's southern suburbs.
Now that the threat is resolved, surely Israeli strikes into Lebanon will stop, right? Yeah. Were people really cheering, or is that propaganda? Yes. Like I've said before, the Lebanese society is very diverse and has had a litany of infighting and complications. A lot of the Lebanese society also despises their governance. And they see Hezbollah as taking advantage of that power vacuum pretty much, because like they are one of the more popular parties and are the basic standing military of Lebanon in general. So for this reason, what's good? So for this reason, I think like some people definitely have different opinions about Hezbollah in general. Their domestic governance obviously is not great either. Having said that, however, most people see it as like a defensive posture that Hezbollah presents towards Israel, and they certainly hate Israel a lot more than they fucking even hate Hezbollah. But the video that they were using to say people were cheering Hassan Nasrallah's assassination is from 2019, and that's it. Like the one I'm saying, the one in Lebanon. I'm sure people in fucking what do you call it? I guess the way I would describe it is like if there was an alien force that was not China, like far more powerful than America, right? Like an insane power. And this alien force was attacking America relentlessly and showing that they wanted to occupy the country. And then they assassinated like the Republican paramilitary that was like actively fighting against the aliens. Most Americans would be like, this is fucking incredible. This is bullshit. Like, this is completely unacceptable. They would not, like, even if you had a disagreement with the Republicans in that regard, you would still be like, well, they're up in arms against, like, you know, a much more powerful enemy. So that's the way to analyze it. Lol, worst metaphor in history? I don't think it's not. Wait, what? Hezbollah done got rocked. Hezbollah in shambles. Worst metaphor in history? I think it's a phenomenal metaphor, because regardless of your opinions in terms of like domestic policy, if you are faced with a far larger enemy, I'm trying to explain it to Americans who have never actually faced a far larger enemy. So that's why I'm using the alien analogy. There's no other way to describe it. But ultimately, if aliens fucking dropped a massive bomb in the middle of New York to like assassinate the leadership of like the Republican paramilitaries that were fighting against them, you would probably be like, that's fucking bullshit. The much larger enemy would be the aliens in this circumstance. And you don't have to look any further than Ukraine to understand this. There are plenty of Ukrainians who did not like the Azov battalion, who did not like the fucking Nazis in Ukraine, who fought against said Nazis in Ukraine, who, once the much larger enemy, Russia, came in and started fucking blowing their goddamn cities, entire city blocks, came aligned with the Azov battalion. That's usually how things go. This was something that I mentioned in the beginning of the invasion as well, where I talked about how invading a country does not denazify it. As a matter of fact, it just galvanizes and emboldens some of the more fascist elements within the country and turns them into national heroes because their emancipatory goals are now completely justified. So yeah, not even making a comparison between Hezbollah and Nazis. I'm just using that as an analog for people to understand, especially because a lot of people who despise Hezbollah love, the Azov battalion. Hassan, I need an explanation. Yesterday, during the bombing of Beirut, some CNN journalists were sheltering. Could you explain why that would be necessary? They themselves say that Israel is precise and targeted when they strike. Why would they be afraid? Can't put my finger on it. Because Israel cannot be analyzed from the perspective of a belligerent, okay, in American news. But they are. They are not only belligerent as like in the war terminology, but they're also belligerent in the way that you colloquially understand the term. They're insane, okay? So that is precisely the reason why, of course, Americans are obviously understandably fearful. But as the United States of America, we can't acknowledge that Israel is a belligerent occupier in Lebanon. So we take this weird posture where we're like, yeah, you got to take your own tickets out if you want to leave. We can't even evacuate. See, hi, I'm Lebanese and just wanted to note that a lot of people that don't support Hezbollah, including me, but in these circumstances and living under the threat of a genocidal and destructive state, we see Hezbollah as our only form of resistance. So it's shocking when you hear the leader of our resistance is dead. Exactly. No, I totally get that. I totally understand that. Are we seriously mourning the death of the head of a terrorist organization? Brother, I'm going to tell you right now, if you have this opinion, you 1,000,000% would mourn, okay, if, again, an alien force out of nowhere came in and assassinated like hundreds of fucking civilians in the middle of Chicago to like execute whatever fucking Republican military general that was fighting against those aliens. Okay, you would be like, that's unimaginable. That is insane. I can't believe this just happened. Okay, you can slap on the terrorist sticker over and over again, but what you fail to recognize is Israel is a far greater terror in the region. It's just that we don't analyze Israel as a terrorist organization because it's a state. Okay, and it's not only a state, but it's also a state that's aligned with the United States. If you want to see a terror state, we consider Iran to be a terrorist state. We consider Russia to be a terrorist state. Those countries are outside of the scope of influence of the United States of America, and they are personally viewed as a state sponsor of terror. Israel is significantly larger in terms of the terror it presents to enemies that it occupies, enemies that it is a belligerent occupier of in an unjustifiable war that it wages upon every fucking country in the region and all of the territories that it currently illegally militarily occupies. So it doesn't really matter what sticker you're slapping onto it. It doesn't change that dynamic at all. Okay. And in terms of analyzing Hezbollah's militancy in the dynamic between Israel and Hezbollah, when you look at the tit for tat bombing campaigns that occurred since October 7, right, between Israel and Hezbollah, Israel is responsible for 82% of all bombing, and that number has actually grown now as well. So ultimately, if we're going to look at it on a same moral boundary, if we're going to all of a sudden operate on the same moral playing field, Hezbollah is the far greater lesser evil in that situation. Okay? Incredibly restricted and restrained in terms of its tit-for-tat military campaigns in comparison to Israel, because Israel doesn't have to be restrained. Israel can do whatever the fuck it wants, and America will give it billions and billions of dollars in weapons. Weapons or billions of dollars that they are going to give to Israel instead of you for your health care, for your free college education, to fix the fucking potholes, you know, or to harden our infrastructure against climate change and the natural disasters that seemingly occur at a rapid clip, at a more rapid clip than before. Year over year, America is both under fire and also underwater at the same time. And yet, our infrastructure is falling apart, and we have absolutely nothing going on to fix it because there's no money for that. Okay, we can't do that. We can't do that. There's no money for the top of the hour ad break avoidance fee because at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break, and you could be defensive against that by subscribing for $4.20 until the month of September is over, or for free with a Twitch Prime. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Or by getting gifted subs. Flocky, thank you for the 10 community gifted subs. Here is the 3-minute ad break now. The 3-minute ad break. Here it is. The copium is insane. Keep indoctrinating children and asking them for money. God damn, your copium is full force right now. It's not copium if I'm just giving you facts, okay? It's actually you that is engaging in copium while simultaneously saying it's copium. Also, children, it's hilarious. This community is, you know, broadly 30 plus. But you can fantasize about them being children, I guess, in your mind. Not only are you wrong on that front, you're also wrong when you say this is copium. It's pure projection. You are the one who is coping in that regard, hoping that what I'm saying is not true. You need to explain you're coming from the POV of someone in Lebanon. Yeah, I mean, I'm explaining it from the perspective of people who are under a relentless bombing campaign at this moment. But ultimately, regardless of the command structure being gutted and eviscerated by Israeli bombing campaigns, the people's interest in emancipation still remains. Like, that doesn't go away. You know what I mean? People are not going to be like, all right, well, they killed Hezbollah. They killed the Hamas leadership. I guess it's over now. Like, it doesn't work that way, which is hilarious because we know it doesn't work that way after 12 months of relentless bombing in Gaza, where virtually every Israeli general has come to that same conclusion. But because Hezbollah and Lebanon is new, they're using the exact same arguments. We must liberate the people of Lebanon from the grips of Hezbollah in the exact same way that they said we must liberate the people of Palestine from the grips of Hamas. Okay? That's it. And it's funny to see chatters try to run that exact same route. Try to run that exact same fucking route. Like, as though this hasn't already happened for the past 12 months. They shut the fuck up about it now because they recognize it's a done deal. It's not going anywhere and it's not going to work. They leveled Gaza to liberate the Palestinian people. Of course not. Yeah. All they're doing is liberating the people of Lebanon from their bodies. Exactly. Anyway, let's continue.
Triggering deafening explosions and sending huge plumes of crimson smoke in the skies above. On the ground, near total devastation, at least 4 buildings pulverized. Israel's military says it killed Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, and this morning the group confirmed he was dead. Syed Hassan Nasrallah was a singular figure within the political and paramilitary force, known for his fiery speeches, like this one we attended in August. For 32 years, he led Hezbollah, which means
Ghassan Kanafani, bodies fall, ideas live forever. And it's not just ideas as well, it's ideals. Not just ideas, but ideals, okay? People understandably have a need for emancipation. People understandably do not want to live under permanent military occupation. People don't want to get fucking bombed into bits, okay? You feel me? That's a normal, understandable position that every human being has. So, of course, it does not fucking matter. Like, assassinating the head of this organization will maybe, okay, will maybe stop it'll probably stop the bombing campaigns for like a little bit. Even that is not likely, right? From the Hezbollah side. But ultimately, when you continuously and mercilessly and relentlessly occupy territory, more and more territory, you keep bombing these people, they're gonna fight back. Okay? That's it. There is no world in which you can bomb people so hard that they end up liking you. They're just going to like you less. And this has happened over the course of the past 20 plus years of permanent military occupation in the Middle East with America. Look at Afghanistan. The Taliban has taken over Afghanistan again. You know? It's fucking stupid. There's only one commander for Hezbollah alive. Dude, I don't think you guys understand. Unless you personally think that people's understandable resentment against Israel in the territory was because Hassan Nasrallah was like the singular figure mind controlling everyone to hate Israel, this doesn't make any sense. Why do a lot of Americans fail to comprehend this, okay? A lot of Americans, because we are so comfortable in the lap of luxury, in the first world, in the core of empire, we have no way to comprehend a much greater threat to our existence. We don't have any way of understanding that, so much so that we make up our own fake threats against us, like some fucking goat herder in Afghanistan or some rice farmer in fucking Vietnam, okay? Like, we literally have zero enemies. We have 800 military bases and zero real enemies. So much so that we make up new ones in order to justify our fucking check your pager. Like, this is again, a powerless person posturing as though they benefit from America and Israel's actions. You, motherfucker, do not have health care, okay? You will never achieve the American dream. You will never be able to own a house. You will never be able to get upward social mobility. Your life will be worse than your parents' generation. But because you recognize that, you have to like grab onto anything. You have to grab onto anything and everything you can to be like, well, no, this is check your pager. You're Hezbollah. You're gonna die. You are still the same fat kid on the inside, insecure nepo baby loser. I know, man. You're right. Gray name sock account in my chat, who is probably on his 8th fucking fake account just so he can chirp in here, is not the loser. It's the Twitch streamer that he's fucking yelling at on a Saturday, on a beautiful Saturday. You could be out enjoying your life, but because you're angry and resentful, okay? Yes, I am. Are you mad? Do I seem mad? Not even a little bit, because I understand the hurt that you have experienced. I understand the systemic problems that you experience on a daily basis that have hardened you to this degree, that make you seek out this kind of negative engagement with people online, because you can't have this conversation. You can't have a normal interaction with human beings in the real world, okay? You come across as a resentful, angry little worm in here. You don't come across as like a cool guy who expertly trolled a Twitch streamer. I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm telling you, okay? This is where it comes from. Like the anger and resentment that you have, it builds up. And the lack of future prospects that you see in front of you makes you angry. So you lash out at anything and everything you can, and you grab onto like America's actions as though they are good for us, as though they're great for us, you know? Oh yeah, a fucking 9-year-old was exploded in Lebanon, but you don't care. That's a good move. That was fucking sick. Like, go turn off the fucking broadcast and literally watch college football or something, okay? It is probably a more productive thing for you to do. True, we should just let you spread pro-terrorist propaganda unfettered. I never spread pro-terrorist propaganda. I am not in support of Israel's actions, and I'm not in support of America's actions, okay? You support Houthis killing women for trying to get educated. There has never been a single moment where I've supported such things. And you will not be able to find that. And that's precisely why you're just making it up. Okay? You're making it up. Also, the irony here is that you support just killing the women yourself with American bombs. You literally just made a reference to that right here. Check Your Pager is a reference to Israel's terror attacks in Lebanon, utilizing a civilian communications device in direct contravention of international humanitarian laws and rules of fucking war. It is a violation of the Geneva Convention. It is literally an act of terror. Former CIA Director Leon Panetta has said as much. And you're in here justifying that act of terror, celebrating it, and hoping that it happens to someone who is living in the United States of America. Okay? A civilian communications device, yes. That is what a pager is. most commonly used by doctors and nurses, which Israel also killed a fucking nurse. From when it was a civilian device, guys, pagers are a civilian communications device, okay? I can't believe we're having this conversation again. I'm not mad. The reason why I'm not mad is because I hear this all the time. And I know where this anger and this spite comes from, this resentment comes from. I know why you're upset. I just wish you could have a little bit of an open mind and recognize the hurt that is your own government is causing you, okay? But instead, you want to close your eyes to that and go, hey, at least there's someone lower than me that my government is fucking owning right now. My government is actually funding and supporting the ownage and the carnage in the third world. So it's great. It's not going to fix your life. As a matter of fact, it probably grows your resentment and anger as you flail desperately in this death spiral that you found yourself in.
Means Party of God and is considered a terrorist organization by the US and many other countries. And through support from Iran, he expanded it not only into a political force.
You are doing it right now. These takes are atrocious as resident Texan, 19-month subscriber. What takes? Do it from the perspective of a Syrian now? What? I have no idea what you guys are talking about. All right, let's continue.
Hezbollah, which means Party of God, and which is considered a terrorist organization by the U.S. and many other countries. Through support from Iran, he expanded it not only into a political force, but also one of the most powerful and heavily armed standing armies in the region. Nasrallah's death would be a potentially catastrophic blow for the group. Several of Hezbollah's military commanders have been assassinated in other Israeli strikes since July, and thousands of its members were injured in booby-trap pager and walkie-talkie explosions earlier this month, leaving it badly diminished and potentially leaderless. The stunning developments follow Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's address to the UN General Assembly, where he received a mix of boos and applause.
And we'll continue degrading Hezbollah until all our objectives are made.
Yeah, I wonder what those objectives are. For the record, there's never been an instance where Israel has not said that they're doing this for like security concerns. Just so you understand. Like, it is always a security concern. Okay? This is like the justification for the state of Israel existing since 1948. Okay? So when they say, oh, this is a security concern, understand that, like, that is the justification for you to hear in the Western world and understand and agree with, okay? The tactic is always the same, okay? Fuck shit up, displace civilians, and then settlers come in and take over that territory. People understandably feel resentful and spiteful against Israel, fight back. Then Israel encroaches on more territory because you have to protect those civilians that now moved into that area, right? That's why people are desperately inside of Israel. You have ultra-Orthodox, rabid fucking ultra-Zionist, ultra-national.
All right. Thank you, brother Hassan, for babysitting the stream for a little bit. And I am back in time just for the top of the hour ad break. So if you don't want see 3 minutes worth of ads that I'm only running so that I can keep the pre-roll ads off, then you should think about subscribing or maybe gifting some subs so people can avoid coming right back to the show at the top of the hour ad break, which is happening now. All right, we're going to wait for the ad break to get over before we continue. 1 minute left on the ads. "30 seconds, friends, 30 seconds. All right, ads are over. What was up? No. I'm gonna remove. I gotta remove some stuff here. No, that's fine. Okay, ads are over. So let's get back to the schedule. So we just finished. Well, not just. I ran out for a little bit real quickly, but we finished with some of the recap news of things that happened I talked about last week. So let's get on to some more prescient, both news. Starting with some election news. So, find your All right, so I'll get another Brave browser up. So the first thing we're going to look at is the election, and not the first thing. We're going to look at Kamala Harris for election. Now, there's a lot of different articles out there, but it suggests what actually, I want to do something real quick. Who owns? Now, again, this perspective, this article, at least, in this perspective of what Kamala Harris should do for her elections, comes from the Economic Times, which is India English newspaper. But it did have some interesting things to take away from this article. The synopsis of this is: that Kamala Harris's first White House communications director, Ashley Ateen, has suggested the incumbent U.S. vice president should shift her focus from former U.S. President Donald Trump to the Democratic candidate needs to connect more with the undecided voters, as their votes will play a significant role in the election. It's kind of funny that this foreign newspaper is pretty much spot on with, summary at least, how and what Kamala Harris has to do to shift focus. And there is freaking what's his face? I forgot his name. John Fetterman? Yeah, John Fetterman. You can recognize that lurch style format anywhere. Anyway, let's see what the Economic Times has to say. Kamala Harris's former senior aide has requested the Democratic presidential nominee to focus more on bold strategy for her presidential campaign rather than focusing on former President Donald Trump. Which I would kind of agree with at this point. You're getting to, we're what, like a little over a month away from the election, and you are still banging on the drum of Donald Trump, more so than you are actually explaining any of your plans and policies if you are elected. Tina's advised Harris that she needs to do more work to secure the support of the undecided voters, which I agree with, and they will play a crucial role in the upcoming presidential election in 2024. Democratic nominee Harris needs to give more attention to this group of undecided voters, as their votes are significant for Harris to win the election. Kamala Harris needs to build a stronger campaign, as her current strategy is not fully resonating with the broader electorate, as per a report in The Telegraph, which is probably not wrong. She really isn't not wrong, because she's not really resonating as much as she did when we were all lived up and happy that, Joe Biden was not the nominee anymore. American political advisor Ashley Atteen has shared her advice in an op-ed for the New York Times. She said that U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris should shift her focus from former U.S. President Donald Trump, which must be her first priority. She has also suggested that Harris should prioritize the significant issues in her country. She also wrote that the continuing to focus on Trump might not yield new supporters, implying that it could be more strategic to shift attention to other pressing matters. Atteen also suggested that along with large-scale rallies, Kamala Harris should conduct events in small towns in battleground states. Wow, what a unique idea of, instead of focusing on how awful and terrible your candidate is every single time you get onto a podium or in front of a crowd of people, you actually talk about what you're going to do. And also, perhaps instead of, sticking to the big cities, big places, and the battleground states, you go a little bit more into the smaller area. Into the smaller town area. What a thought. What a thought that is. Show people that you actually care about the everyday folk instead of just the people in the metropolitan areas, which is a problem with the Democratic Party in general. It's very much giving 2016 way too much again with Hillary and all that stuff. Like, can we not like, I just don't understand. Like, no, well, I do understand. They've just been practiced, tried and true. They know how they, by they I mean, politicians, that they know how they want to talk and how they want their message to come across very well. They are very, very in tune with how they sound, how they talk, and all that stuff. But just because it's mostly, just the practice of speech and public speaking that people far smarter. I lost my head. It's just like we're literally going through 2016 again, and I just don't get it. I just don't get it. What's the point of being like, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy? Which, okay, yes, I agree with, as well as many other people. Clearly, even in other countries that aren't even you know, who have newspapers that aren't even like mostly read by Americans, I would say. Even this is right, like, hey, you should probably stop talking and focusing on your opponent and focusing on what you're actually going to do. When was the last time a president actually did that? Where they were like, hey, this stuff sucks. How about we change it? And they actually followed through on it. Was that like Teddy Roosevelt? The Harris campaign is constantly focused on the comments of Republicans, and they've been sharing clips of Trump's speeches across social media, some of which are bangers and some of which are not. The official social media accounts of the campaign have shared a huge number of videos on social media, along with a meme of Donald Trump with a walking frame whose caption is, "Okay, Grandpa, let's get you to bed." Ooh, so original. The strategists of Republicans are also in concern regarding Republican nominee Donald Trump's personal attacks on Democratic nominee Kamala Harris. These attacks risk alienating modern swing voters, a crucial demographic that could determine the outcome of the election. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has not paid attention to the advice of Republican strategists. He has criticized Kamala Harris over the weekend by calling her mentally disturbed. Recently, at the rally in Wisconsin, Donald Trump backlashed U.S. President Joe Biden and U.S. President Kamala Harris. He claimed that Joe Biden has become mentally impaired, as well as Harris, who has had a similar issue from birth. What? Oh, Trump claimed that. Trump used the comments to argue that the current administration handling the country reflects poor decision-making, which in his view could only be the result of significant mental shortcomings, as per the Telegraph. Wow. He's yep. What a winner we got. Just great. What a we're just so seriously dumb as a country. Now you're probably being like, oh well, why should the undecided voters, why should we focus on those moderates, and we can do whatever else we need to do to just keep promoting and getting the undecided voters on our side? Well, problem is that most people, when they talk about undecided voters, they just mean the undecided voters that have, consistently been a crutch for winning these elections by the establishment, basically being, centrists and moderates, instead of actually looking at the real undecided voters, which are most Americans who don't, really care about much in terms of politics, other than the fact that, they want their own lives and material conditions to significantly improve and get objectively better within their everyday experience. In addition to, to the undecided moderates who are in the middle, to the people who are probably, mostly liberal and concerned with aesthetics about things, probably are starting to not like the look of U.S. being complicit in a genocide occurring in the Middle East, as well as elsewhere across the globe. They are most likely looking for, something that when they can go talk to people at their gatherings, family, Thanksgivings, whatever the fuck, after this election, they can at least say, oh, well, I voted for Kamala because she chose the more appealing, a more, the high ground, taking the high road, so to speak, with whatever it may be, even if she's still supporting genocide in Gaza. At least if she put on the facade of that she actually cared about Palestinians being melted left, right, and center, she might be able to get a little bit more of those people who, will obviously, the first thing they'll say is well, war is bad. Fine, that's good. I don't care about whatever else you have to say as an undecided voter after that point, as long as you're okay, war is bad, and you would like to see Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, their administration, stop doing as much war, including supplying the tools and weapons of war. You know, if you can just go to, like, and then again, those are the undecided voters who are more in the center and more moderate, right? Moderate being they want to see change, but not so much change, right? It's not moderate, like, oh, moderate temperature, like, oh, this is bad, or it just moderates being, you know, between a conservative and a liberal. The other I would say larger and more significant section of undecided voters that could honestly swing, maybe not swing the election better for Kamala, but at least make it less nail-bitingly close, are the undecided voters who have been very, very open and very, very vocal about what they want Kamala Harris to do. Specifically, stopping the war and genocide in Gaza and in the Middle East, now extending into Lebanon. And why would we say that? Well, after the Democratic National Convention, could be, you know, the way that Kamala handled things, or at least, you know, didn't handle things at the Democratic National Convention, definitely hurt her chances of actually having a, you know, some kind of breathing room in the polls between herself and Donald Trump. Because, well, let's find the clip first before we go into the article. Let's see if I can find it. I think this was it. Yeah, let's find the...
Please welcome the
Specific
Democratic
point.
nominee for president, Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris.
Actually, it's been about, let's update. I'm going to update. Be a little more relevant. What else do we got on here? Election news. Okay.
Husband Doug, for being an incredible partner to me, an incredible father to Cole and Ella, and happy anniversary, Dougie.
Yogi.
I love you so very much. To our President Joe Biden. And our walls. But sure. So my mother, she met. We moved our stay close. He taught me to in the Bay. Explain this to console survivors of crime, to remind them no one should be made to fight a career on being greatest nation. Members, trust me, to put country above people of various political views watching tonight. And I want you to know, I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party and self. To face they were due and fight.
Yeah.
Fellow Americans, the most important in the life of our nation. Not always your voting officer. Send help at a crime. Set a political
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole.
of the United States. Not to improve your life. Not to going to a future and building that middle class. My mother kept us available to live in a rural area. Day needs like health care. He intends to enact $1 a year. And I believe, especially on the United States plus our country, losing the ability Donald Trump and one love over the last year, but I will heritage as a nation of immigrants fighting for
Here we go.
our security.
Sorry, it took a second. I couldn't remember where in her speech. I knew it was near in like or after, but sorry. So, if and I don't want this to happen, but if Kamala Harris does lose this election, and even if she doesn't lose this election, people, election historians or whatever I don't know. Is that a thing? Election historians? I'm sure it is. Historians, commentators, political experts will probably be analyzing this whole, well, not probably, they will be analyzing this whole election cycle, this whole, unprecedented election cycle here to just see where, Kamala went from being ahead to, people being like kind of breathing a bit of fresh air of like, oh man, we're not going to have Donald Trump in office anymore, to why is this race getting tighter and tighter? Why is this race continually getting tighter and tighter when it's an obvious choice of who the lesser evil is? Like, it's probably not that good of a choice because, like, obviously, I will keep saying this over and over and over and over and over again, but obviously, Donald Trump is the worst choice. Significantly, things will get worse for everybody, for LGBTQ plus people, for Palestinians and other Arab nations in the United States with close proximity to Israel, female voters, labor especially, with more recent strikes and things coming up. But particularly, I think this spot, what she's about to say at this point, is going to go down as, if not one of, if not the worst, but probably one of the worst things she could have said in this particular race, with so many eyes on Gaza.
Negotiated with foreign leaders, strengthened our alliances, and engaged with our brave.
What the hell? Something got reset again.
Troops overseas. As
Why are you going? This should. Oh, something's. Okay, hold on. Ah, I see. I accidentally clicked that button.
Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most foreign leaders, strengthened our alliances, and engaged with our brave troops overseas. As Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world. And I will fulfill our sacred obligation to care for our troops and their families, and I will always honor and never disparage their service and their sacrifice.
That moment right there, where instead of, well, after refusing to give any Palestinian voice a chance to speak on this stage, including an elected official in our own government who is Palestinian, Kamala Harris decided to double down on our sacred duty to take care of our veterans, which I wouldn't even say that's a sacred duty. That's just the bare minimum you should do as a government, is take care of your people, your military, your representatives, the interns who work in your offices. You should be taking care of all those people. That shouldn't be a sacred duty. That should just be your duty, your everyday duty. The problem with that, the problem with stating something like, "Oh, it's our sacred duty to do this," is because it's very vague. It's very vague. You're saying it's a very big thing, being like it's sacred, but sacred duties tend to be very that's how should we say, vague in their timelines of when they're going to be executed and completed. But besides that, the more worrying part of this little segment.
Sacred. America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world.
I don't think many people who, again, we're focusing on the undecided voters here, right? If we are looking at the undecided voters and the majority of the voters, right? Whether that's, the undecided voter who's, more of a centrist, maybe slightly somewhat left, like my parents, right? They are liberals at heart, but when they see things, they just don't know how to describe things, and they just can't really, change their point of view on some stuff. But they agree, endless amounts of war and wanton destruction is not necessary, period, but especially against a force that is clearly, on the defense, not even on they can't even defend themselves. I can't even say that they're on the defensive because Palestine can't defend itself. They are at the mercy of a genocidal administration, both in Israel and in the United States. And I don't think it makes the people who want to see that end, especially the people who feel very close to the Palestinians in Gaza and now the West Bank, and now the people in Lebanon who have been, getting decimated by the Israeli colonial project. Especially the people who have direct relations, like friends, family, people who used to live in that part of the world affected by this war and endless aggression. They probably don't want to hear that you're going to ensure that America will always have the most powerful, lethal fighting force on the planet. I don't think that's what these undecided voters wanted to hear. Even the people who are like superficially are just like, yeah, what's happening in Palestine is terrible, awful, blah, blah. Israel has the right to defend itself. Even those people in the middle who just don't know probably would be a little more encouraged to vote for Kamala Harris if she said, we are going to work more towards peace. Being the peaceful dove. Because even though Donald Trump lies when he says he is going to stop every conflict and war on the planet and whatever, he's not going to. He was a direct cause to the current escalation because he moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. And it's just like the further right Kamala goes in her narrative with things like regards to the border, but especially the Middle East, it's just not reassuring. And the reason I say it's especially not reassuring is because we have something like this to read. Not that. From The Guardian, Harris is underwater in our polling, Michigan representative says. Democrat Alyssa Slotkin worries about Harris's chances as mail-in voting has begun in swing state Biden won in 2020. A Democratic representative in a key battleground Senate race in Michigan told supporters she was concerned about Kamala Harris's chances in the state's presidential election. I'm not feeling my best right now, and where we are on a Kamala Harris... Right. I'm not feeling my best right now about where we are on Kamala Harris in a place like Michigan, Alyssa Slotkin said at a fundraiser earlier this month, according to Axios. We have her underwater in our polling. Slotkin did not offer more details on specifics of the data to which she was referring. Axios reported, without seeing the actual poll, it is difficult to assess its credibility. Candidates will sometimes use internal polls to motivate supporters and urge them not to get complacent. Mail-in ballots started being sent to Michigan voters on Thursday. Donald Trump gave a speech and held a small town hall in Michigan on Friday. Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, also made an appearance at a football game between the University of Michigan and University of Minnesota on Saturday. Walz and Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, are set to square off on Tuesday in the only VP debate, another milestone moment in this race, which I will be watching live on here. 538 average polls shows a very close race in Michigan, with Harris having a narrow lead. Winning Michigan, a state Joe Biden won in 2020, on his way to capturing the White House after Trump carried it in 2016, is key to Harris's hope of becoming president. The simplest path for Harris to win the election and deny Trump a second presidency is to carry the Rust Belt states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Losing any one of them could complicate her path to winning the Electoral College. Polls also show Slotkin with a wider lead over her opponent, former Representative Mike Rogers. Holding onto the seat is a critical part of any chance Democrats have to keep control of the U.S. Senate. The Cook Political Report has stated the race to fill the seat of Debbie Stabenow, a Democratic senator, in a highly competitive toss-up. His comments come as the polls show an extremely narrow race in key battleground states as the presidential campaign enters its final weeks. Harris holds a 1.9 point lead in 538's average of the polls in Michigan and has a similar advantage in Wisconsin. She holds a 1-point average in 538's average of Pennsylvania polls. Polls also show an extremely tight race in Georgia, Nevada, and Arizona. This article, as many other individuals have stated, time and time again with regards to this current state of affairs in this race. You can't outright the right. You can't outright flank the right, because the right will always be far more openly xenophobic, racist, bigoted in general. Which is probably why, even after your speeches and rallies within some of these states, you know, particularly Arizona, where I believe she was recently, you know, maybe the time to not be as bigoted and as racist, as right as people like, oh, I don't know, Donald Trump and all of them, should be now. Like, because you're not, the people in that state who are like already like, oh, well, or in these states who are just like, I hate immigrants, I hate migrants, I hate all these things. Like, why would they why would they vote for Kamala Harris? Because they would just vote for people they, because they're just gonna look at her and go, "Yo, you're just a Democrat trying to win us over with your lies. We'll just go with the tried and true racists, Donald Trump and everybody else." Like, you're not gonna outflank conservatives by being more conservative on the border or Gaza or the military industrial like, it's so stupid. You just don't want to do the thing that you know you should do, even if you don't believe in it, that you should strategically do, but you won't do it because you are still so tied up with your corporate donors that you won't even do the strategically smart thing to do. And additionally to that, if you think the Republicans are going to be sitting around and just being like, okay, well, and if you're thinking, well, the Republicans are focusing on their election and they're focusing on the rallies and where they got to go and door knocking and dippity-duppa-doo, you would be wrong. According to Reuters, Republicans lay legal groundwork for election challenges as of today. Wow, this is hilarious. Frickin' Trump supporters are supporting mail-in ballots. Huh, that's weird. Summary of the article. Republicans involved in over 120 lawsuits across 26 states to challenge election processes. Legal experts say Republicans aim to sow doubts about election legitimacy. Republicans sue to restrict voter registration and mail-in ballots in Michigan. Trump's allies seek to purge voter rolls in Nevada and other states. And again, I just have to remind you, no, this is not a 2020 article. This is 2024. September 29th from Reuters. In Arizona, one of 7 competitive U.S. states that are expected to decide the 2024 presidential election, an advocacy group founded by Donald Trump advisor Stephen Miller is advancing a bold legal theory that judges can throw out election results over failures or irregularities by local officials. This sounds very familiar. The lawsuit by the America First Legal Foundation, a conservative advocacy group, says the court in such cases should be able to toss the election results and order new rounds of voting in 2 counties in Arizona where Democratic candidate Vice President Kamala Harris is leading Trump in the polls by a razor-thin margin. Almost 4 years after former President Trump and his allies try and fail to overturn his election defeat with a flurry of more than 60 hastily arranged lawsuits, Republicans have launched an aggressive legal campaign laying the groundwork to challenge potential losses. Sick! Republicans say that the lawsuits are aimed at restoring faith in elections by ensuring people don't vote illegally. Trump and his allies have falsely claimed that his 2020 election loss to Joe Biden was tainted by widespread fraud, which now Trump is saying that he lost by, a whisker or a hair's breadth legally, and, okay, it was fair, and he just lost, and then he flips back and forth. It's wonderful. It's the best thing ever. While the Arizona case is likely a long shot, legal experts say it fits with a pattern of Republican-backed lawsuits that appear aimed at sowing doubts about the legitimacy of the election before it occurs and providing fodder for challenging the results after the fact. This is part of creating the narrative that there will be irregularities that will require outside intervention, said Columbia Law School professor Richard Berfault. America First Legal Foundation, its lawyers and Miller did not respond to inquiries, as of course they wouldn't. A spokesperson for the Republican National Committee said the party's top priority is fixing what they say are problems with voting systems before Election Day to ensure no ballots are illegally cast. Our election integrity operation is fighting to secure the election, promoting transparency and fairness for every legal vote. This gives voters confidence that their ballot will be counted properly and in turn inspires voter turnout, said RNC spokesperson Claire Zunk. Trump and Harris are locked in a tight battle ahead of the November 5th election, fueling a wave of litigation by both Democrats and Republicans as they spar over the ground rules. Republicans typically sue to enforce restrictions on voting that they say are necessary to prevent fraud, while Democrats generally ask courts to keep voting accessible. And of course, we know when Republicans say they typically sue to enforce restrictions on voting that they say are necessary to prevent fraud, they of course mean restricting the ability for black people, brown people, gay people, trans people, and women to vote. The Harris campaign said in a statement that Republicans are scheming to sow distrust in our elections and undermine our democracy so they can cry foul when they lose. Team Harris Walls enters the home stretch of this campaign with a robust voter and election protection operation and the best lawyers in the country, ready for any challenge Republicans throw at us. We will give Americans the free and fair election they deserve so all eligible voters can vote and have that vote counted. In Michigan, another closely contested state, Republicans are suing to prevent state agencies from expanding access to voter registration, restrict the use of mobile voting sites like vans, and impose tighter verification rules for mail-in ballots. In Nevada and other states, Trump allies are seeking to purge voters' rolls of allegedly ineligible voters and non-citizens, though the deadline for systematically culling rolls in time for the election has passed. Of course. In Pennsylvania, Republicans are fighting to enforce strict mail-in voting rules that limit voters' ability to correct mistakes on their ballots. On September 13th, Republicans scored a victory when the state's highest court ruled mail-in ballots with incorrect dates will not be counted. Sowing confusion. Election litigation surged in 2020 as COVID-19 spurred changes to voting procedures, wider use of mail-in ballots. Those fights were often reactions to granular local specific issues. More than 60 lawsuits Republicans filed challenging Trump's loss in 2020 were rejected by courts. This time, Republicans are filing legal challenges earlier and leveling allegations of widespread fraud that strike to the very core of the election process. Trump's continued false claims that his 2020 defeat was the result of fraud has taken root in the Republican Party. 71% of Republican registered voters responding to an August Reuters Ipsos poll said they believed voter fraud was a widespread problem, well above the 37% of independents and 16% of Democrats who held that view. They're out front and early and are moving preemptively, whereas 2020 was kind of reactive. Here, they're getting ahead of it. The Arizona lawsuit filed in February by Yavapai County Court underscores the proactive approach by Trump's allies. It alleges a litany of missteps and illegalities by election officials in Maricopa, Yavapai, and Coconino counties in past elections and asserts that only court intervention can restore the public trust. Maricopa County was dismissed from the case on procedural grounds. The complaint asks a judge to impose a list of 24 orders enforcing the America First Legal Foundation's interpretation of election laws and correcting errors by any means necessary, including nullifying results and ordering new rounds of voting. Errors could include failure to staff ballot drop boxes at all times or failing to take certain steps to verify signatures on ballots. That is a novel and sweeping request by a judge is unlikely to grant, according to legal experts and election attorneys. But a judge nullifying results in a crucial state could lead to chaos, confusion, and delays, which some legal experts and voting rights groups say is a central goal to the Republican legal strategy. Of course it is. Because when you can't win normally, you just have to sow distrust, discord, and lies in order to make your chances better. Uncertainty could give local officials and state legislators the opportunity to meddle with the results, according to Sophia Linlaken, an attorney litigating voting rights cases on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union. For example, officials could try to throw out votes or refuse to certify the outcome. It's about laying the groundwork for there to be enough doubt in the election process that a political maneuver could be brought to bear to impact the outcome, Lacken says. But yeah, let's just keep repeating, same mistakes of 2016 of, Donald Trump is a threat, and that will drive people to come out in droves. Be right back. I'm going to go pee. Yeah, it's just it's looking a kind of way, a kind of way that I kind of don't like. As in, why the F can't? Like, I thought when Kamala, those first few weeks after Biden dropped out and Kamala took over, and they were making a lot of decisions that seemed to be just generally based on the fact of these are good things, not just populist things, but like legitimately morally good things. Unfortunately, those things were so fleetingly pathetic in their attempts of using them within the election cycle that I can't even remember what the fuck they were trying to do. Because that's how fast this shit just fades from the Democratic Party in terms of remembering the good stuff that they do. But whatever. What does it matter? What does it matter? Because, well, it does matter, because if they don't get their shit together and actually start trying to court the undecided voters who are only undecided because of one big issue, it's just, what do the Democrats really think? Do they think if they say, okay, like, Israel, you have clearly won the war against Hamas, you have clearly dominated and taken over the entire area, and you control that whole area, that area now, that region that was formerly between Israel and Palestine, and like you got that. And now you are starting to consistently violate the sovereignty of your other neighbors vis-a-vis airstrikes into Lebanon and Beirut because you believe that there are terrorists there. You don't need more weapons. You need to come up with a better plan. You need to come up with a better strategy for handling the terrorists in the area, because melting women and children isn't doing it. Like, they don't even have to make it a permanent thing to be like, oh, it's a permanent weapons embargo ban. You could just be like, oh, it's a weapons embargo ban until you get your stuff together. Like, even that, I think, would get a significant amount of people who are undecided to go with Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. But they won't even do that. And it looks like, according to the article about at least Michigan, it looks like it might be hurting the down ballot race, which of course it would, because like why would the large Arab population in Michigan who are hurting and in pain because of their friends, family, kin being melted on a hourly basis at this point in the Middle East, why would they trust the Democrats down ballot? They may focus more on their local elections, sure, but like your state representative, your senator, president, like, what are they doing to show that they actually care about anything other than just continuing sales of weapons overseas? Because that's honestly what it looks like. That's honestly what it comes across as. They just want to maintain the military industrial complex status quo. And it's just really so gross.